All right, Zoom kids, I'm recording so I can go over this APUSH short answer, how to do the short answer. I hope this isn't terrible. It'll be terrible. Video is terrible for me. It's going to be terrible, but I'll try. I guess trying is important. APUSH short answer question. So I looked in AP Classroom because the rumors are kind of swirling about changes to the AP test. And I haven't found anything to indicate. The College Board's official position is that you will be tested over the regular content, and they haven't made an official announcement on the format of the test. So we're going to continue to assume that you're going to be tested on the regular content, that COVID will be gone, hopefully, and you will be able to take a face-to-face paper test safely on all of the things, okay, all the parts of the test. That's how we're going to operate at this moment. Having said that, I do feel like you will probably have to take a computer-based assessment. I think the College Board has now figured out that the computer-based assessments are actually easier for them to administer. They kind of ripped the Band-Aid off last year, figured out how to do it and what that actually looks like. And so, I mean, I'm not really sure, right? But I would be surprised if we do a paper test at this point. Having said that, I'm still going to teach you all parts of the test, assuming that we will have all parts of the test, okay? So the short answer is a piece of that. So we just went over some multiple choice, and we're going to keep working on multiple choice as we go throughout the year. But the short answer is another piece. Now, my understanding is that because of COVID and because you guys got cut off for 9 weeks last year, it was difficult for you guys. You didn't actually learn a ton about the short answer because the College Board said, oh, you're just writing a DBQ, and you guys hadn't really learned how to do a DBQ yet, so you just focused on that because it wouldn't have made sense to learn how to do a short answer. That's not what the test was, right? That's about right. About what happened? Yeah. So the short answer question, you will have there are 3 short answers. The first one is period 3 through 8. The second question is period 3 through 8. And then question 3, you will get a choice between 2 question options. Option A will cover time periods 1 through 5. Option B will cover time periods 6 through 9. Okay, so you have to answer question 1. You have to answer question 2, right? Then they'll give you a 3 and a 4, or a 3A and a 3B. You pick if you're answering A or B, okay? So most of the time, you can kind of choice your way out of one if you don't necessarily know it. Right? If you're not great at time period 9, a lot of times you can sort of choice your way out of it. Now, most kids are pretty good at time period 9. Time period 1 is the one they struggle with. So a lot of times you can just say like, you know, strategically, you can usually work your way around some of the stuff that you don't know in the test. You'll have 40 minutes to do 3 short answer questions. It works out to be about, what's that, 12-ish minutes, 14 minutes, about. Some of y'all are sitting here doing math. It's between 11 and 14 minutes per question. It's 20% of your exam score, and you will be given 3 tasks per question. So it'll be like the stuff that I've been kind of putting up for you guys on the discussion boards, where like yesterday with the mercantilism thing, the discussion questions, where I gave you like a quote, and then you had to find 1 piece of evidence that refutes the quote, right? So you might have to you have to identify the thesis, find 1 piece of evidence that supports the thesis, and give 1 piece of evidence that refutes the thesis. There's your 3 tasks. See what I'm saying? So they give you 3 things. 3 tasks equals 1 point each for a total of 3 points. Okay? So 3 points per question is 9 points total. Okay? If we do well on these, we are setting ourselves up to do well on the exam. Okay, this is a great place for us to earn some points and for us to earn those points pretty quickly. All right, the questions are, some of them have a stimulus. So some of them have a stimulus like the way multiple choice questions do. Some of them will give you a thing that you have to read, and then you go over that thing, and you have to, the ones that have a stimulus tend to be really hard because you have to identify the person's thesis a lot of times or argument, and you have to get that part correct to be able to earn the points on the rest, right? So we're going to work really hard on identifying tertiary sources arguments so that you can then move forward with the question, right? If you identify the argument incorrectly, then you end up a lot of times with a 0 out of 3 because you can't support an incorrect answer. You follow what I'm saying? Okay. Some will just ask you to rely on your knowledge of history, and most will have parts A, B, and then sometimes they'll have a C. So sometimes it'll be like, give me 2 pieces of evidence, right? And then explain one way something happens, and that's from 3 tasks. Sometimes it's parts A, B, and C, or it's 1, 1, 1. All right, so this is an example. Now, we're not going to do this one, but this is an example of a short answer stimulus style question. So they're getting a quote from John Muir, which says, I recognize the right and duty of this generation. No, John Muir says, none of nature's landscapes are ugly so long as they are wild. And then Theodore Roosevelt says, I recognize the right and duty of this generation to develop and use the natural resources of our land, but I do not recognize the right to waste them or to rob by wasteful use the generations that come after us. What they're trying to do here is it's 2 different views on land use, right? So you have to identify each person's view on land use correctly to be able to move forward with the question. Briefly explain one implication for public policy of John Muir's view on land use. So there it is. You have to identify John Muir's view on land use correctly to be able to get that right. Because if you identify his view incorrectly and then identify an implication, you have based your answer on an incorrect interpretation. You see what I'm saying? Tyler, you can close the blinds if you want. Is it that blind right there? Yeah. Okay, pull the string. Do you see the string? You don't see the string. You do see the string, yeah. So you got to pull it over to the side. Meanwhile, Miss Sears is recording. Okay, other way, yeah. There it is. Yay, good job. Okay, the next one, briefly explain one way in which an implication for public policy of Theodore Roosevelt's view contrasts with the implication for John Muir's view. Do you see how we're building layers here? You have to understand Muir's view, you have to understand Roosevelt's view, and you have to correctly identify the implications for their public policy, right? If you didn't get Muir's view correct and Muir's implication correct, you can't get this part right. So it starts with you understanding, right? And it starts with a correct interpretation. The next part says, identify one specific example of land use policy in the United States from 1890 to 1945, and briefly explain how the example is consistent with the view of either Muir or Roosevelt. Okay, again, right, here we are, making sure that we understand their arguments and their policy before we can build up our answer. All right, now, how do you answer the question? Well, some people find this portion of the test very refreshing. And the reason they find it refreshing is because you don't need an argument, okay? There is no thesis statement required in the short answer. You answer the question, okay? So you answer the question in part A, you answer the question in part B, you answer the question in part C. Remember, you only have between 11 and 14 minutes. There's no way there's going to be all of this analysis and argumentation. It's not, the expectation is not that it is a well thought out essay, right? They're just quick and dirty, testing your knowledge kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you read all the parts of the question. You want to make sure you provide at least one piece of evidence for each portion of the question or task. You want to pay attention to your time, plan about 10 minutes per question with another 5 minutes to read them over and edit them, okay? If you can answer them quickly, right, and remember, some are going to be easier to answer than others, so you want to kind of be flexible with that, but you want to be able to give them enough information, right? It should be, each task should be a few sentences, right? So you should, you know, 1 or 2 sentences, between 1 sentence, I worry, is not enough. So it should be between 2 and 3 sentences a task, okay? You're not writing a whole page, you're just writing a meaty paragraph. Clear and complete sentences. Do not waste words with filler or fluff. You don't need transitions. You don't need fancy words. You don't need any of that. Okay? You don't need amazing grammar. You want complete sentences with an answer to the question. Don't waste time saying, you know, The Revolutionary period was important. Okay, we don't need that. It's a question on the AP exam. Obviously it was important, right? We don't need to say that part. So just answer the question, right? You don't need an intro, you don't need a transition, you don't need a conclusion. Any of that stuff that makes up good writing, you don't need it. No pressure, just answer the question, okay? They just want to make sure that you know history. Right inside the box, they scan the answer. Has anybody ever told you this about writing inside the box? Okay. They scan the question in, and then, because they have to make copies, right? If you have written outside of that box, it doesn't get scanned. So if you're handwriting your answer, you know how sometimes you like, and you like put it in all these different places? You can't do that. You have to keep it in the box. If it's outside the box, it doesn't get scored. Okay? So you got to write in the box. You have to write neatly. And this is why I like the typing. That's one of the things that I really like about the computer-based test, is that we can type, and handwriting, we don't have to worry about handwriting. I have at least, I probably have one student every year or two that doesn't do well on the exam, probably because of their handwriting. Every few years it happens where I'm like, I bet they couldn't read your handwriting. That is an issue, okay, sometimes. And so that is definitely something that you need to pay attention to. If you're handwriting this test and your handwriting tends to get kind of messy, like I said, I don't think we're going to be handwriting. I think we're going to be typing. I think we're going to be, if they can keep all things the same, the only change could theoretically be that we are now computer-based, because it is more efficient, because they don't have to send the test out, and it is more sanitary to not touch all those papers. So, but, you know, also make sure you write the correct number. This happens fairly regularly as well. I had a student 4 years ago, who got a 2 on the exam, but probably should have gotten a 4 because she misnumbered the test. If you tell them that you're answering number 3, but really you're answering number 4, they're gonna score it like it's 3. You see what I'm saying? Because they don't know that they're not gonna, there's just nothing for them to do. She misnumbered the test. She misnumbered her short answer, and she misnumbered her essay. She should have gotten a 4. She got a 2. So because two of her one short answer and one long essay were not scoreable. You follow? So you want to, that's kind of one of the reasons why you want to not worry as much about fancy words and grammar and how you're saying it, and just say it. And then you want to give yourself a little cushion so that you can go back, read through the test, and make sure you have it numbered. Check your numbers, make sure you've numbered them correctly. Okay, that's another nice thing about a computer-based test. You don't necessarily have to worry about that as much because you're typing in the box. Okay, so explain how early 16th century European exploration involved both the means and motivation to explore and colonize land across the seas. Use at least 2 of the factors that are listed below: religion, trade, and technology. Briefly explain how one of the 3 factors above became more or less a factor in colonization by the end of the 16th century. This is a kind of question that you may get. So the first thing that you would have to do is pick. Are you going to talk about religion, trade, technology, as far as how early 16th century European exploration involved the motivation to explain, right? So you have to pick 2 of those. Which 2 are you going to talk about? Answer the question by talking about them with a couple of sentences and specific examples. Then you need to go back and take one of those factors and say why it was less of a factor, right? So technology was less of a factor for this reason. By the time it rolled around, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now it's time for you to try it. And we're going to try it with this question. Okay? And I'm going to stop recording myself if I know how to do that.